Hi there, Suzanne Damon, lead agent for the Damon Home Team at Remax Insight. And we often get asked questions about what do I do at an open house? So in today's real estate world, a lot of people, agents, are listing properties and putting what we call delayed showings into the MLS remarks, indicating that the showings are delayed until perhaps an open house, but a later time. And then all the buyers have to go to the open house. And if you've been to an open house recently, there are often cars waiting and 50, 60 people going through a house on a particular Saturday in a 2-hour time frame. Some agents are requiring that you actually make an appointment for an open house, and all kinds of things are happening as far as protocol. It doesn't seem to have anything consistent with it. So bear that in mind. The best thing to do is contact your agent. That would be me. Contact us and tell us you want to go to the open house, and we'll discover what the protocol is so that you can follow it. And if an appointment is required, we're going to make that appointment for you right away so you don't miss out on opportunities. So then the next step is you go to the open house, and then it's like, what do? You don't know what to look for. Of course, you're going to look for things like floor plan and making sure that room sizes are big enough and so on and so forth. But the first thing you want to look for is any kind of damage or neglect. And how we do that is we look at baseboards, especially in the basement, any signs of water staining. I look at the lolly columns. I look to see if there's rust on the bottom. I look around the edges of the basement floor to see if I can see any kind of effervescent white stuff that looks like there might have been moisture or water at some point. I open up cabinets on the upstairs and look inside, especially plumbing in the kitchen and the bathroom, and just look for any kind of leaking pipes. You're looking for deferred maintenance or things that might indicate that the house was not well cared for. And the other thing I look for, especially with hardwoods, is hardwood flooring, is I pick up the rug that might be in the dining room or the living room, just the corner of it, just to see if it's hardwood all the way through, and also to see if there's any kind of demarcation staining between the wood and the rug. Sometimes there's some because of light and the way that light hits it, there might be some difference there with regard to that. Look at the windows. The windows are very important today. Are they older windows? Are they original windows? Are they newer windows? What are they? And I put my hand, if the window is like right over here, for example, I would put my hand along the edge of the frame just to feel if I can feel any coldness coming in through those windows, draftiness. So I pay attention to the windows. I also pay attention to the cracks in ceilings. So I look at floors, ceilings, and walls. And as I look around the outer edges, I look for any kind of cracking that might be going on. Typically speaking, just so you know, and I look at this as a V because this is how I remember it, vertical cracks, so that means cracks that go down the wall, are less concerning than horizontal cracks. So that's from a structural engineer perspective. Always cracks should be somewhat concerning, but there's always settlement cracks in a house too. So we just gotta kind of know what that is, but be aware if there's a lot of cracks, there could be something going on. A crack every once in a while is not a big deal. But again, there'll be a home inspection to determine whether or not that's a structural issue. So just pay attention to that as well. Open and close doors. So to make sure that the doors fit in the openings nicely, making sure that there's doors on closets and in the rooms that they're appropriate for. Electrical outlets, I check that out. In the areas of water, so kitchen and bathrooms, I make sure that there's a ground faulted outlet by those water sources. Bathrooms, especially in older houses, in the old days, they didn't use electricity in the 1930s when they built the house. So there wasn't an outlet in the bathroom to blow dry your hair or shave or whatever you need to do. So I check outlets to make sure that they're grounded. You also want to make sure that the outlets have 3-prong outlets rather than 2-prong outlets, something to pay attention to. Sometimes people will leave original 2 prongs on the walls as outlets, but they've also installed the 3-prong grounded outlets. So we kind of want to pay attention to electrical. And then as far as the electrical panel, you want to open the panel and just make sure that there's extra space for additional items, or is the panel completely full? And that we just want to note and just make sure that if there's extra room there for added things like a hot tub or whatever you might need to add at a later time, if the panel's completely full, then that's fine as long as you don't need to add anything. So there's that. Okay, the other thing we want to take a look at is the neighbors. I like to look, and as we shop out there, we take a look at neighbors because location and neighborhood brings value to the property. And we want to make sure that the neighbors are suitable for you, whatever that means, just suitable for you. Look around. Normally, if I'm out with you and we're looking at a property, I will point things out about the neighbors, some things that I see. Sometimes you might see a bicycle in the yard, or you'll see some type of toy or apparatus that might indicate that there's children that live nearby. And that's great, especially if you have children, there might be some camaraderie going on there. So you want to pay attention to the kinds of neighbors that you have and what's going on in the neighborhood. So that's a really important spot to look at too. And on the exterior, you definitely want to take a look at the roof. What I usually look at is if it's an older shingle, it has a color to it, which means green or red even, and sometimes some really light grays are older shingles of a color. The other thing is I look for is a ridge vent across the top of the roof, meaning some type of airflow space. That means it's pretty much generally a newer roof, but I look at the spacing in the shingles, and I just look to see if there's any peeling or curling going on in the shingles. Again, I'm not a home inspector. These are just things that I look at with my eye after having 30 years in the business, just things to take note of. And again, a home inspector will be able to tell us more in detail what the life expectancy of those items are. We want to take a look at the chimney. The chimney, sometimes when you look up, if it's nicely stacked and all put together in a nice fashion, that's a good indicator that the chimney's in good shape. Okay. We want to take a look at things like storage space in the house. That's another thing to take a look at. And make sure that you have linen closets where you need them, and enough closet space in your bedrooms if that's what you need and you have an extensive wardrobe. I would pay particular attention to how many other buyers are at the property. That means competition for your offer. So I'd pay attention to that as well. You kind of just want to know what problems might be present in the home and create some type of checklist for yourself so that you can kind of check off those items as you go through the property. How long has the home been on the market? And are there currently any offers on the home? And that's something you certainly can ask the listing agent, which leads me to, upon entering the house, you might want to introduce yourself and tell them, the agent or the host of the open house, your names, and let them know that you're working with the Damon Home Team currently, just so they know that you already have an agent and you're being represented. You might want to take a look at what the schools are like. You might want to ask the agent why they're selling the home. Maybe it's just outgrown the space, or they're moving out of state, or whatever. But you might want to ask the question, why are they moving? And then I want you to take a look at the flow of the house, and that's important as well. How well the flow is for your family and what your activities and your family's structure looks like. Do you need a dining room because you eat in the dining room every night? Or is no dining room okay for you? Is the kitchen big enough? Cabinet space. Most times that first-time home buyers are coming from apartments or spaces that are very small in terms of kitchen space. So anything you look at will be bigger than what you have. But really think about that. Do my pots and pans fit? My dishes, my groceries? Is there a pantry? And so space becomes very, very important. So I think there's some good ideas here in terms of what you can look for in an open house. And I hope you find this helpful. Happy house hunting.